In this lecture, we're going to examine some of the more tangible elements that are part of research studies. And the first type of research study we'll examine is what is generally referred to as an experimental design. An experimental design has two very foundational variables. The first is referred to as the independent variable, sometimes referred to as the X variable, and it's that aspect that is manipulated or is under the control of the researcher and forms the foundation of the research study itself. So one such example is if a group of researchers wishes to evaluate the effectiveness of a new drug to treat psychotic episodes. And in this type of research design, the independent variable would be the treatment group, where research participants, or in this case would be patients, under the care of a physician or a psychologist, would undergo possible a treatment with this new drug. As part of the experimental design, a basic approach here would be to identify one group of research participants that would be randomly assigned to this group who would consume a placebo pill. And that would be a pill that does not contain the medicinal ingredient intended to treat the psychotic episodes. The second group would be identified as the treatment group, where the research participant would consume the pill that actually has the medicinal ingredient. And as a result, the conclusion of the study would be able to compare the outcome of the study with respect to whether the participant consumed the pill with the medicinal ingredient or without the medicinal ingredient. So although there are two groups in this example study, there is only one independent variable. So the research participant is randomly assigned to one of the two groups, and the group assignment is referred to as a level of the independent variable. So in this example, we see that treatment group, the one independent variable, has two levels, two possibilities to which a research participant could be assigned. Some studies can actually have more than one independent variable, and it's quite common for that to happen, and we will examine examples of this later on in the course. The dependent variable is also referred to as the outcome variable. This is what will be measured, and this is what will usually carry some form of measurement unit to it. So with the example that we outlined earlier on this slide with respect to the study examining a new drug to treat psychotic episodes, the outcome of interest would be the number of psychotic episodes per week. So in a study such as this, if the new drug were found to be effective at reducing the number of psychotic episodes per week, statistically this outcome would be different when measured from between group 1 and group 2, where group 1 would have a greater number of psychotic episodes per week if the drug were found to be effective. The second major type of research design is often referred to as a non-experimental design, and these are designs that do not involve such researcher manipulation of an independent variable. And so studies such as this involve what's called an explanatory or predictor variable and a criterion or response variable. The criterion variable in a study such as this is similar to the dependent variable or the outcome variable that we observe in experimental design. So the outcome of interest is in the non-experimental design is referred to as the criterion or response variable. And so in this example here we see the results of a study that sought to examine relationships between identity, impression, and emotion among what you see here is a large number of individuals. So along the x-axis would be the predictor variable. So in this study, the evaluation of a person's identity was actually quantified, in which case a numerical value was applied to the predictor variable. The criterion or response variable of interest in this study was a variable referred to as impressions. So an individual's impression was evaluated and quantified in a similar type of manner. And the scatter plot generated here, this particular scatter plot, illustrates a pattern that seems to emerge. And so this pattern can be quantified statistically with the line of best fit. And so that refers to a line that can be drawn in a manner that will minimize how much distance occurs among all the individual raw data points from that line. And so although the line of best fit is the first step in quantifying a relationship, so we're not looking for differences between the predictor and criterion variables, we're examining how these two are related to each other. And so we see a general upward trend that as the quantification of identity transitions from negative to a positive and greater value, so does the evaluation for impression. And the other important element to take from non-experimental designs is not just the existence of a relationship, but what's called prediction error. So the line of best fit enables the prediction of impression from identity, because identity is the predictor, but the prediction is never or extremely rarely going to be perfect. And so what we see here is that there is a scatter of the actual data about the line of best fit. Unique in this study is that as the measurement of identity transitions from a negative value to a positive and increasing magnitude value, the scatter appears to increase away from the line of best fit. And so as the identity value changes from negative to positive and to a greater value, the prediction error increases and the predictive power slowly starts to decrease. And so there are statistical methods that can be used to quantify that changing decrease in predictive power as illustrated by the increased scatter. One other point when conceptualizing and thinking about carrying out research studies and sampling is the source of the raw data, the source of the information obtained from people. And this information can be obtained in a qualitative manner or a quantitative manner. So where do these people that we are going to sample information come from? Well, in Canada, these must be volunteers that typically, traditionally, these people are referred to as subjects. A more appropriate and accurate term is research participant. But in Canada, they must volunteer only after the potential participant, they're not a participant until they've actually entered the study, they must understand all the relevant information about the study, and it is the responsibility of the researchers to ensure that the participant understands all of the relevant information. And the two key pieces of information that the participants must comprehend is that participating in the study, does impart some risks to the individual. These risks can be physical in nature. So in these two photographic examples, here we see a person riding a bike, and while they're riding the bike, they're having the air that they're breathing sampled simultaneously for oxygen and carbon dioxide. In the lower figure, we see a person is having muscle tissue removed for biochemical analysis as part of a research study. So there are physical risks that are greater than what these individuals would typically perform on a daily basis. Some studies carry significant psychological risks. Emotional risks and social risks are all part of the research process that a participant must be aware of. The risks usually outweigh the individual potential benefits to participating. And so in the upper photograph here, through participation in the study, this person, the research participant, may gain information as to their fitness status. That may be perceived as a benefit, but the benefits are, for the most part, not guaranteed. And the participant must understand why the research is being done. So the research participant does not need to know the information to the same depth as the investigators, but this core information must be comprehended by the participant, and it is the researcher's responsibility to ensure that the participant understands all these aspects. One final element generally to the research process is applying statistics to research. And to do that, studies must have variables. And a variable, as defined earlier, can be defined as an element, when measured, will produce two or more different scores. And as outlined earlier, we have qualitative variables in which research participant information is not measured numerically, but does carry different levels of classifications based on that measure. Or the measure can be quantitative in nature, in which a numerical value is assigned to the measurement obtained from the participant. And this indicates a relative amount or magnitude of that measurement. So two examples here. The first example here is muscle strength. So evaluating muscle strength quantitatively in a research study would be to examine how much weight a person can lift. And if it's a quantitative variable, it must carry units. And so in this particular example, the quantitative variable is defined as operationally as the amount of weight lifted that carries the units of kilograms or pounds. Qualitatively, muscle strength in a research study can also be evaluated along very clearly defined descriptors, which includes strong, moderate, or weak. So based upon how the researcher defines the collection of the information qualitatively from the participant, they would be classified under one of these categories. Another example is the measurement of pain. Pain can be measured quantitatively using what's called a visual analog scale, which is essentially a line on a piece of paper from 0 to 10, where 0 would indicate no pain, 10 would indicate worst pain experienced, and an individual would put a mark on that line as to where they would feel that pain. And it can also be measured qualitatively as intense, moderate, or mild. So a research participant that is evaluated for muscle strength or pain would be categorized to one and only one of these categories. And so although these examples only use 3 categories, some studies can only use 2 or could use more. So this ends our third and final part of our Unit 2 lecture.